Hey friends, tonight we drift into something curious, intimate, and often misunderstood, the sex life of the medieval world. But before we begin, go ahead and subscribe. Tap that like button if you're vibing with this kind of storytelling. And drop a comment, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. You're safe now. Let the noise of the day fall away. Still, behind closed doors, in the still corners of cottages and castles, people remain human. They love, they touch, they long. She is married, but not in love. Her husband, Lord Wycliffe, is away more often than not of hunting, taxing, commanding, and so she waits, reading faded poetry and dreaming of gentle touches in the garden below. For noble women, sex is often duty, a path to heirs and alliances, not to pleasure. But even within arranged marriages and cold chambers, some women found ways to carve out softness. Some discovered longing in inked verses, in the margins of illuminated texts, in letters hidden deep within books. The truth is, sex in the medieval world was not one story, it was many. It differed for nuns cloistered in prayer, for widows breathing freedom at last, for shepherds lying beneath stars after harvest, and for weavers like Eleanor, who still carry dreams not yet spoken aloud. Eleanor has heard the whispered tales at the village well of stolen kisses beneath haylofts, of knights returning from war, seeking warmth, of midwives who know herbs for timing and tinctures for desire. Let your breath slow with the rhythm of the dark. But her thoughts drift to Thomas the blacksmith's apprentice, quiet, tall, eyes like dusk. They had spoken once at the feast of St. Agnes. She had laughed, he had smiled, and ever since, that smile had followed her into dreams. In a world of rules and sermons, of warnings about Eve and original sin, is there still room for something as simple, as brave, as tenderness? You're not in a bed anymore, you're floating in story. Let the medieval world wrap around you the flicker of candlelight, the hush of woolen sheets, the scent of hearth smoke and lavender. Know this, even centuries ago, people longed to be held, to be chosen, to be seen. Sex was not only sin, it was a question, a language of the body, a curiosity passed between hearts when words failed. She wonders not only about the act itself, but about the closeness, the vulnerability, the tenderness. In her time, sex is deeply entwined with the body, the seasons, the stars, and always the sanctity of marriage. There are rules, of course, the canonical hours for intimacy. No Sundays, no holy days, no passion during Lent or Advent, and never, ever in the daylight. But desire does not obey calendars. Love does not follow rules. The hum of the world has softened, and what remains is the stillness of night. Breathe in and out. Let your breath become the rhythm of time itself. The fire crackles in the hearth. A gentle wind rustles through ancient stone walls, and the leaves outside whisper like memories. You're wrapped now in warmth, curiosity, and quiet wonder. Tonight, we don't just drift into sleep, we drift into history, a history forgotten by many, shrouded in silence and shadows. Our story begins in the year 1327. In a small English village where cobblestone paths meander between thatched roof cottages, and the scent of bread and damp earth fills the air. As the morning sun rises over misty fields, we enter the life of a young woman named Eleanor. She is neither noble nor peasant, but somewhere in between, a weaver's daughter, known for the softness of her wool and the kindness in her voice. By candlelight, Eleanor spins thread and wonders about love, about life, and about the secrets whispered between sheets. In her world, sex is not merely an act, it's something sacred, feared, regulated, desired, and often deeply misunderstood. The church looms over everything, not just as a place, but as a force. Every desire, every touch, every union is judged through divine eyes, or so they were told. Sex in Eleanor's world is sacred, yes, but also sinful. Let us now leave Eleanor's village and drift north to a manor house where Lady Isbelda, a noblewoman, waits by her window, bathed in colored light from stained glass. Now the fire crackles lower, the night deepens, the crickets sing their soft song. Let us return, finally, to Eleanor. One morning, she walks along the forest's edge, her basket swinging gently as she collects berries for dye. Let your body melt even deeper into stillness. The night wraps you gently, like woven linen, cool on your skin, soft like breath. Above you, the stars shimmer in quiet constellations, just as they did centuries ago. And you are there now, walking through the early morning meadows with Eleanor. The earth is damp beneath her bare feet, and birds begin to stir in the canopy of ancient trees. The crackling of dried wood, the distant music of flutes and tambourines, the laughter echoing through stone alleys. Imagine a small wooden room lit only by flickering beeswax, sprigs of rosemary tucked in each corner to bless the union with fertility. Outside, villagers sing and laugh, drunk on mead and joy. But inside, two young people sit on the edge of a new life. They are alone, perhaps for the first time, and they are nervous because no one truly taught them what to expect. There were no lessons, just warnings, whispers, prayers, and yet, with trembling hands, they begin. They touch gently, as though tracing an unseen map, and slowly they find their way. For many, this was the beginning. Not mastery, but mystery. Awkward laughter, deep breaths, maybe even tears. And sometimes, if fortune was kind, love. Smell the roasted apples, the cinnamon and spiced ale. You are there too, a quiet soul among them. Because when the world was full of uncertainty, plague, famine, war, the body became sacred in its own way. To lie next to another person, to feel warmth, to hear their breath, that was a kind of holy, even if the church would never say so. Let your breath soften now, like the rise and fall of theirs. Let your heart slow, like the hush that follows a wedding song. You are safe inside this memory. You are part of it. The flicker of candlelight dancing on stone, the soft rustle of a linen gown slipping from shoulder to floor, the silence of two souls discovering one another for the very first time. As dusk settles and the fire grows tall, Eleanor finds herself beside Thomas. The air is thick between them, heavy with everything left unspoken. No words, just a shared breath. Together they leap. Their hands remain locked. The crowd cheers. But in that moment, all Eleanor feels is the warmth of his palm, the brush of his arm. The heat rising between them, something neither sermon nor fear can extinguish. This was medieval intimacy, not simply sex, but the long, slow rise toward it. The glances over baskets of bread, the shared labor at harvest, the touches exchanged during daily life, casual yet charged. Desire was slow burning, built over days, even months. Everything moved slower. Thomas. His name is a sigh on her lips. She had seen him again at the chapel steps. He had offered her only a glance, but in that glance was an entire language, one unspoken, yet known. In Eleanor's world, a touch of the hand could hold more meaning than entire love songs, and slower meant deeper. A smile could last a week. A glance across a field might become a memory returned to 100 times. A dance at the maypole could feel more intimate than anything spoken aloud. For medieval people, sex was not simply a rush of skin, it was slow anticipation. There, behind monastery walls, an herbalist named Margot tends her flowers. She knows each stem, every leaf, every blossom. It carried expectations, sometimes shame, often fear, and yet quietly, in the hidden folds of village life, it also carried joy. Let's drift now, gently, to another place, to France, to the rose gardens of Avignon. She brews teas that soothe pain, and tinctures that make a man dream of his beloved for days. She knows how to prevent pregnancy and how to invite it, because though the church cloaked such knowledge in sin, real understanding of the body never fully disappeared. It simply hid past in whispers among midwives, grandmothers, and women who learned by watching, listening, and remembering. While priests warned against lust, real lives unfolded quietly beneath their sermons. People still touched, bodies still ached, children were still born in. Not all were born into marriage. In fact, many marriages in peasant communities began with pregnancy. It was not uncommon for couples to test compatibility before exchanging vows. That night, bonfires will blaze atop the hills. It is said that if they leap in rhythm, their love will last a lifetime. She knows Thomas will be there. Listen to the sounds of the fire. Now, drift closer, still, into the candlelit hush of a wedding chamber. What made sex meaningful in the medieval world wasn't perfection, it was presence. And in the morning, the bells will ring, and life will continue. But for tonight, there is no fear, no shame, just warmth, just wondering. Let the warmth of candlelight spill gently over your skin. You are safe here, surrounded by softness. The distant bells have stilled, and the winds beyond the stone walls have softened into lullabies. Thomas still lives in the village, still shaping iron with his bare, calloused hands. But it was deeply, quietly felt. It bloomed not in textbooks, but in poems, in tapestries, in the fading sighs of lovers partying at dawn. There, Sister Beatrix keeps records in a leather-bound book. For medieval women, knowledge of their cycles and fertility was passed quietly from mother to daughter, neighbor to neighbor. It was wisdom whispered, not written. Sex came with weight, with consequences. Without modern protections, women bore burdens men rarely understood. Pregnancy was no small matter. Birth could take a life as easily as it gave one, and yet they still chose love bravely, vulnerably, hopefully. There were no diagrams or guides, but there was instinct, curiosity, the quiet instruction of nature itself. The room is filled with steam, fragrant with rosemary and myrtle. Men and women bathe separately mostly, but the walls are thin and eyes wander. In this place of cleansing, intimacy takes another form, playful, physical, full of laughter and teasing. Here, the body is not hidden, but embraced, washed, admired. These bathhouses, public yet private, offered rare freedom and sometimes pleasure. She is quiet, thoughtful, and once, long ago, she was in love. But underneath was the same heartbeat, the same yearning, the same hope to touch and to be touched, to know someone and to be known. Wrapped in wool cloaks, their hearts beat louder than the storm. They don't say much, they don't need to. They find shelter in the old grain house. Let your mind float to the scent of damp grain, to the warmth of their embrace, to the stillness of a night filled with something sacred. Across all classes and ages, it was part of life, whispered about in taverns, painted discreetly into manuscripts, joked about in Bodhi plays in the village square. Not everything was sacred. Not everything was kind. There were dark truths to marriages without consent, power used as punishment, women denied choice. But even in the shadows, there were sparks of litax, of resistance, of secret joy, of quiet rebellion through touch. You are wrapped in their memory. Let the story carry you like a gentle river. Let go, drift deeper. Candles flicker, shadows shift, and slowly, so slowly, it begins. Not with hunger, but with reverence. His hands tremble, so do hers. They undress, not with haste, but with awe-like pilgrims crossing the threshold of a sacred space. There is no shame, only wonder, the gentle curve of her hips, the quiet power in his shoulders, the warmth building between them, like fire catching kindling. It is awkward, yes, but also holy, because in that moment, nothing else exists. No church, no laws, no sin, just breath, skin, the ancient rhythm that humans have always known. She gave that love up for God, but it never truly left her. Each night, as the others sleep, she writes letters she never sends. Letters to him. In those pages, she speaks of dreams, of phantom touches, of the time his hand lingered too long on hers at a well. Though her vows are binding, her body remembers, because chastity, though revered, was often a mask worn with dignity, but not without ache. In monasteries and convents, longing did not die. It changed shape. It turned into prayer, into poetry, into quiet sighs beneath woolen blankets. It lived in cathedral carvings, hidden high above, tucked into stone columns, where cheeky, naked figures tangled together in defiant joy. Even in places deemed holy, the truth of human desire found a way to peek through. Sermons warned against carnal pleasure, but the body remained unchanged. Desire pulsed through farmers and monks alike. And while rules existed, loopholes were found in the dark corners of taverns, in haylofts warmed by sunlight, and yes, even in confession booths, where sins of the flesh were whispered through trembling lips. But time has left its mark. Eleanor is no longer the girl who wondered in silence. She is a woman who knows longing, who holds questions deep within her chest, and who carries secrets passed from glance to glance, wordless but loud. They met again, she and Thomas, beneath the apple tree behind the chapel, where the air smelled of warm bark and early blossoms. There, beneath low-hanging branches, Eleanor asked the question that had lingered on her tongue for years. What would it be like? Thomas, with lips barely parted, answered softly, I think it would feel like everything finally makes sense. The hush of history cradles you now, and time itself stretches like wool pulled across a loom. You drift with a deeper, slower, your breath, sensing with the rhythm of footsteps long past. The footsteps of Eleanor, now older, now wiser. Many moons have passed since that midsummer night by the fire. In medieval life, romantic sex wasn't spoken of in direct detail. Let us travel now, away from Eleanor's village, to a convent near the northern coast. Return now to Eleanor, who stands in her kitchen garden, preparing herbs. Lavender for calm, chamomile for sleep, pennyroyal just in case. Eleanor and Thomas finally meet, a game truly meet in a rainy evening. The forge is quiet, the village fast asleep. Afterward, they lie together in silence, listening to the rain, to the quiet that follows truth. In that silence, there is peace. Let your breath slow now, as theirs has. For medieval people, sex was layered. For some, it was obedience. For others, survival. But for the lucky ones, it was love. Let us drift once more, this time to a bathhouse in southern Italy. You see, the Middle Ages weren't as prudish as we imagine. The truth is far more human. Sex was not erased, was dressed in different robes. And now, drift even deeper. Your breath is soft, your body is weightless. The world around you is hushed, like the gentle stillness before dawn. They have not spoken of it, openly, not from shame, but from reverence. Some moments are not meant for words. They walk past one another in the village square, just a glance, a slight nod, their eyes locking for only a heartbeat longer than necessary. In medieval times, secrecy was often the only protection lovers had. It is an old stone ruin, wrapped in ivy, half lost to time, to think, to feel, to reclaim her body, not as something to be used or judged, but as her own. For so many medieval women, intimacy was something done to them, not with them. But not Eleanor. Not anymore. She has tasted both uncertainty and tenderness, and with that, a sacred place where lovers go when the village cannot grant them privacy. No one speaks of it aloud, but everyone knows. Even if the church tried to rewrite the story, even if the laws were inked in fear, the body always remembered the truth, and it still does. At dusk, the air there is thick with birdsong and mossy perfume. Here, there are no sermons, no walls, only open sky, soft earth, and the breath of the forest surrounding you. Some bring offerings, bundles of rosemary, petals, carved tokens left on stones older than memory. They believe the place is blessed by the old gods, the ones from before, the ones who did not fear pleasure but honored it, for reputations, for families, for their futures. Intimacy outside of marriage carried enormous risks. A child born out of wedlock could mean exile, disgrace, or worse. The moss beneath cradles your weight like a gentle mattress, and the sky above you glows with 1,000 ancient stars. You are there, aren't you? You can feel it, the way the air holds memory, the way the past is never so far away. To Eleanor, to Thomas, to the unknown hands that once held each other beneath candlelight and oak trees, to every voice that ever whispered into the dark. Do you love me? Will you stay? Can I trust you? Because in the end, that is what sex truly was for medieval people, not just duty, not just sin or lineage or law. It was longing, it was learning, it was risking, and at its very best, it was the feeling of being fully, courageously, beautifully alive. Because the people of that time weren't just figures in history. They were you, they were me. They longed for the same things we do. A hand to hold, a mouth that spoke kindness, a body that did not judge, a heart that stayed through the night. And yet, still, people chose to love. They broke rules, slipped through shadows, tucked love notes into baskets of bread or chapel pews. The heart, even in the strictest of times, could not be caged. The fire beside you glows quietly, casting flickering shadows on old stone walls. Outside, the wind brushes softly against the shutters, and every sound is muted like velvet on the skin. Travelers bring tales of sensuality from distant lands, where the body is not shamed, but celebrated. In the Islamic world, poetry of love and longing flourished. Texts like the Perfumed Garden and the Book of the Kiss explored the pleasures of intimacy without the chains of guilt. There were boundaries, yes, but also a richer, deeper understanding of the erotic of love as art and sex as a sacred act of connection. These stories filtered slowly into Europe, whispered in taverns, exchanged beneath candlelight, or even stitched as coded symbols into imported cloth. Back in Eleanor's village, such stories arrived, softened, but their essence endured whispers of other ways to live, to love, to touch. And for some, those whispers became quiet maps toward something more. You are floating now, not in your bed, but through time, through whispers, through stories once folded into the fabric of forgotten lives. We return again to Eleanor and Thomas. Weeks have passed since that sacred night. One morning, Eleanor visits the midwife not because she is with child, but because she seeks understanding. The midwife, old Mab, is a woman of wrinkled skin and knowing eyes, with wisdom passed from generations of quiet healers. She knows which herbs quicken a woman's moon blood and which can delay it. She knows where babies come from and what men forget to consider. Mab speaks without judgment, offering Eleanor mugwort and calm, steady words. Eleanor leaves lighter not because the danger is gone, but because knowledge is power. And in the Middle Ages, power, especially for women, was a rare and precious thing. Let us now drift far from the quiet village to a bustling port city, where ships from the east arrive with silk, spices, and stories. Let us wander now to the forest's edge, to a place known among villagers as the Green Chapel. Eleanor returns to the Green Chapel alone, not to meet Thomas, but to remember. Now let your breath melt with hers. Let the forest wrap around you. The leaves above whisper lullabies. Sex, for them, was rarely perfect, often rushed, sometimes silent, but sometimes just, sometimes it was transcendent. It was something worth remembering for centuries. So, as you lie here, limbs heavy, eyelids soft, drifting into sleep, know this: you are connected to them. You're doing so well, dear dreamer, still, calm, and held gently in this moment, as the past sways around you like the branches above a quiet glen. Not fully, but in the way one might glimpse their reflection in rippling water reel, yet always shifting. She had tasted desire. She had known the hush of a lover's breath, and now she lived with both the memory and the weight of that knowing. They've been together for 37 winters. Their cottage is quiet now, once filled with the noise of children, muddy boots, and warm bread, quietly, tenderly, sometimes guided by memory more than motion, but no less sacred for it. Desire does not age the way the skin does, and in the rhythm of older lovers there is a grace that young hearts have yet to earn. They sleep beside one another, back to back. But sometimes, in the hush before dawn, Willem turns to her and places a gentle hand on her hip. The air is cool. Incense lingers in the rafters. A dove coos softly above her. She does not pray for forgiveness. She does not believe she needs it. Instead, she prays for understanding. Felt the velvet weight of centuries. You've walked barefoot through the meadows of love. Run your fingers across the pages of hidden history. And now it is time to simply drift, for courage, for the strength to love honestly, even in a world built on secrecy. Sex in the medieval world was not one thing. it was many. It was pleasure and pressure, shame and sacredness, risk and release. Let Thomas's hands remind you of tenderness. Let the old couple's silence speak of devotion. Let the flickering candle of love, however it appears, glow in your heart tonight. You are not alone. You never have been. But above all, it was human, and that humanity still connects us. Kings were expected to bed their wives strategically, ensuring lineage and legacy. In embroidery that carried messages only one other soul would ever decode. The church may have condemned it, but hearts did not. And though danger often walked beside it, still people loved, because to deny love was to deny the soul. And no doctrine, no law, no pulpit could cage the soul completely. But behind the velvet masks of court life, something else stirred. Courtiers wrote love letters so heated they had to be burned, because deep down they both understand marriage is not the only way to belong to someone. It is not the only way to honor a bond. There are touches that outlast rings. There are nights that live longer than vows. And Eleanor carries those nights within her now, not with regret, but with reverence. Chambermaids slipped notes between gowns, behind heavy drapes and guarded doors. The rules were rewritten. Sex was power, and sometimes it was escape for the queen who longed for her tutor, for the knight who loved the scribe, for the lady-in-waiting who gave her heart to another woman. Nothing urgent, nothing spoken, just the comfort of a body that has been known and trusted for decades. For women of her time, intimacy wasn't only a personal experience, it was a social consequence, and the whispers had begun. Take another breath, in and slowly out. Let your muscles sink deeper into softness. Let your thoughts float like petals on a stream. A neighbor crossed herself as Eleanor passed. The priest cleared his throat too quickly during Sunday's sermon. Still, Eleanor said nothing. She simply held her chin a little higher, because beneath the threads of judgment, she carried something they could not see, a private kind of power. Because now we step even further into the hush of history, into the breath between moments. Where we left off, Eleanor had come to know herself. Village women watched her with knowing eyes. But she wasn't alone. Not all women were silenced. Some chose to speak. Let us drift now to a candlelit scriptorium in an abbey. There, a woman named Hildegard writes with ink-stained fingers. She is a mystic, a composer, a healer, and though cloistered, she writes boldly of love and the body. Hildegard of Bingen believed the human body was divine, not shameful, but sacred. Even the act of union, when done with love, was, to her, a spiritual harmony. In her visions, the universe danced a pulsing rhythm of breath, light, sound, and desire, woven into one sacred movement. And so, even within walls of stone, the truth shimmered. People have always reached for one another, even when forbidden, especially then. Now, float across the hills again, to the home of an old married couple, Willem and Agatha. Sex in old age was not often written about in medieval texts, but it happened. Now, drift again this time to a castle far in the east, where sex was politics. Queens were expected to produce heirs. Yes, even then, queer love existed, not openly, but quietly, hidden in poems, in glances, in rings exchanged under the guise of friendship. Let us return now to the chapel. Eleanor sits in the back pew, her hands folded not in shame, but in reflection. Thomas has not asked her to marry. She has not asked him why. Now rest, dear listener, Let your mind ease into stillness once more. Let the flickering of memory fade to embers. You've seen so much tonight. You are safe here, in this space between past and sleepwear. Truths are soft and history hums like a lullaby. Know this as you let go. So as your eyes grow heavy and the world fades to whispers, let Eleanor's story remain with you. Soft now, even softer. Let go of the day, of names, of noise. Let your mind slip beneath the waves of time once more. Creatures stir softly in the hedgerows, and inside her small cottage, Eleanor lies awake beneath her woven blankets, gazing up at the wooden beams above her bed. But even within silence, beauty grew. Sometimes it was clumsy, sometimes rushed, but sometimes it became something more, a communion, a joining not only of bodies, but of spirit. She is not restless, she is remembering the way Thomas's voice caught in his throat that night. Sex workers, so often erased from history, lived lives full of complexity, and sometimes, though rarely, they found kindness in a stranger's eyes. Even in the grittiest corners of medieval life, flickers of humanity remained, and connection bloomed where it wasn't supposed to. Some were abandoned, some coerced, some chose the work for survival, others for freedom. In the candlelit rooms of that brothel, wisdom was passed like coin. But even when words failed, the body spoke. A flower tucked behind an ear, a token exchanged at a feast, a glance that lingered longer than it should have. Let the knowledge settle into your bones that love, across time and across language, remains unchanged. Longing is eternal, touch is universal, and sex, stripped of shame and silence, is simply another way we say, I see you, I know you, I want to be close to you. Love was subtle but undeniable as you lie here wrapped in your blanket like a cloak. Remember this, you are not so different from Eleanor or Thomas or Agatha or Beatrix, who once wrote letters in secret. And when you wake, you will carry this story like a hush behind your ribs, a little warmer, a little wiser, a little more human. You are not different from the young bride who trembled on her wedding night. You carry the same fire, the same fear, the same fragile beauty. Older women taught the younger how to read a man's mood, how to keep themselves safe, how to move through the world without being devoured by it. The air smells of bread and blooming hawthorn. The bride, a miller's daughter, blushes beneath a crown of ivy. After the feast filled with clanking goblets, laughter, and bawdy songs, the couple is led to their chamber. Hear the distant calls of gulls and the low hush of waves beyond the docks. Laughter rises behind shuttered windows. Ships sway softly in the harbor. You are there, a quiet observer in a world both distant and deeply familiar. Let your breath move with the ocean's tide, in and out, in and out. This tradition, common in medieval times, was called the bedding ceremony. Guests would escort the newlyweds to the edge of the marital bed. The air is thick with the scent of cut grain and sun-warmed soil. The village is alive with tired joy. Eleanor doesn't know if she will marry, if she will bear children, if she will remain in this village forever. But she knows she has felt love, not the kind that asks permission, but the kind that simply is. As she walks through the rows, she passes Thomas. Their fingers brush just barely, but it's enough. Enough to say everything. They haven't spoken of that night again. Not because it meant nothing, but because it meant too much. Some sang, some spilled wine, some offered encouragement or cruelty. The crowd sometimes helped remove garments, not always kindly. The way his fingers, unsure at first, learned her slowly, not as a possession, but as a poem. Two people, alone for the first time, unsure of how to begin something they had only ever heard whispered. Often they sat in silence, knowing what was expected, but not what was real. Still, in that fragile space, they learned that touch could be patient, that intimacy wasn't a skill, but a story told together, one breath at a time. For some, it never grew beyond duty, but for others, love followed like a shadow, quiet and steadfast. And years later, when calloused hands reached for each other by firelight, it was that love earned slowly that remained. Like a warm hand on your back, the past draws you in safe, gentle, timeless. The moon has risen above Eleanor's village. Its silver light spills across the thatched rooftops, glimmering like frost in the quiet night. In the medieval world, sex was often experienced without language, no guides, no talks by firelight, just instinct and silence. Slip now into one such moment, a village wedding. It was a ritual meant to mark the passage into adulthood, a moment the community bore witness to, but beneath the celebration lay fear, the weight of expectation. They whispered to one another when the doors closed, kept herbs hidden beneath floorboards, shared their pain. Let the sea wind carry you now. Smell the salt in the air. So much of sex in the Middle Ages was hidden beneath linen and law, cloaked in sermons and silence. Return now to Eleanor. It is harvest season. The fields are gold. Sometimes words cannot hold what we experience. Sometimes silence says more. Let that feeling hold you now. Let your breath slow with the rhythm of her memory. So, dear dreamer, history is not distant. It is held in your breath. Sink deeper now. Drift further. Like parchment soaking in warm ink, like petals falling through the hush of candlelight. Let your chest rise and fall, your limbs so heavy, so still, as the world of stone walls and woolen blankets returns. In this world, passion was sometimes celebrated as divine, an echo of God's own beauty. It was said that a body in pleasure was closest to heaven. Let your breath settle with that thought, the idea that pleasure is not sin, but grace, not shame, but presence. He sang to her, softly, roughly. She braided his hair, slowly, reverently. No one in the village questioned it. The storm had rewritten the rules. Sometimes it was about healing, about two people choosing each other after the world had told them they weren't worth choosing. The slow breath of two people finally able to rest. She is older, now not elderly, but softened in the way that real life wears a person, gentle at the edges, bright behind the eyes. She still walks the forest paths, still gathers herbs, still remembers Thomas, though he is long gone. They were never wed, never had children, but their story didn't need paper or altar to be true. It was lived, felt, etched into her memory like threads in linen. That kind of intimacy, that quiet kind, is not less than passion. It is deeper, more rooted, more real. And as you drift tonight, may you know that such love still exists, in gestures, in memory, in the spaces between words. And sometimes that was the boldest act of all. And one night, with the wind outside and the door barred, they became more than survivors. Not because she regrets, but because she remembers, and that is enough. They became lovers, not loudly, not in fire, but in the quiet glow of second chances. And as you breathe, remember, Even in the medieval world, there were pockets of liberation. They weren't always large, they weren't always safe, but they were real. The Middle Ages never ended, not here, not in memory, not in the gentle quiet of human connection. Tonight, the story carries you beyond England's fields, beyond the brothels and abbeys, beyond Eleanor's thoughtful gaze. Now, we step across borders to a different land, where the rivers of a landless wind, like threads of silk, and the night air smells of citrus blossoms. Here, in the heart of Muslim Spain, desire was not entirely forbidden, nor was it openly flaunted. It was written woven into poetry and cedar, where lovers met briefly, sweetly, before slipping away into the crowd. Or in northern Italy, during masked carnivals, where anonymity offered freedom. A woman in a velvet mask, a man with a borrowed name, and for one fleeting moment, they could taste the forbidden without consequence. In the folds of Andalusian verse, lovers carved their longings in metaphor for those who had no words, only feelings, and those feelings poured into dreams, into stories, into soft touches that dared to linger. Let us return now to a tale passed down through generations of a knight and a widow. They didn't meet in court or battle, but during a flood. When the river rose and the village drowned, he found her clinging to the rafters of her home. He rescued her not from duty, but instinct. When they stood together, soaked and shivering, he looked at her not as a damsel, but as someone real. A glance became moonlight, a touch, rain, the body, a garden. Love poems were exchanged in secret between students and scholars, women and men, man and man, woman and woman. There were the bathhouses in Damascus, where steam curled around limbs like silk, where oils anointed the skin with rose for medieval people. Fantasy was not just for dreamers, it was for survival, for those trapped in unwanted marriages, for those whose desires didn't fit the script. In the days that followed, filled with rebuilding and lost, they sat quietly at night by the fire. You see, sex in the medieval world wasn't always about youth, purity, or conquest. Now, let your body feel the hush of their candlelit room, the rain tapping the roof, the weight of wool cloaks hung to dry. Now, return with me one last time to Eleanor's story. And sometimes, when she lies alone, her hands resting on her belly, she smiles. Let yourself go deeper now. Drift down like old parchment, falling through candlelight, soft, slow. The hush of the medieval night holds you gently. The moon has waxed and waned countless times since Eleanor's youth. She walks more slowly now, but her steps remain steady. It lives on in memory, in the way fingers remember another's hand, or how breath catches when a certain song plays, or how, in the deepest part of night, your body recalls the way it once belonged to another. Her hands are wrinkled, but they carry stories in every line. A man, perhaps 27 years old, is hunched over parchment, writing carefully with a quill. His name is Andre. By day, he copies sermons, royal letters, proclamations, but late at night, he writes something else, letters, never to be sent. Letters to a man named Luca, not in his world, but it flourished in ink. It whispered between pages, folded inside psalters, hidden behind metaphors. That, too, was medieval intimacy. The parchment warm, the words still fresh, still trembling. Breathe. You're not just hearing history, you're inside it. Two women stand in silence, pulling weeds beside each other. They are nuns, but also more. For over 20 years, they've lived side by side. They share everything: chores, prayers, bread, and a kind of touch no one dares to question. Sabine will keep her rosary beside her bed until her own final breath. No one will write their story. No one will place it in history's pages, but it lived, it mattered, and now you know it, just like you know Eleanor, and Thomas, and Andre, and Luca, and all the others who dared, quietly, to love. Not just the physical act, but the courage of truth wrapped gently in secrecy. Clara runs her fingers through Sabine's hair. Know that you are not so different from them. Your heart speaks the same language. Your skin remembers the same heat. Your soul longs in the same way. Not all love needs fire. Some love is a hearth, a steady warmth that never demands, but always remains. Sabine holds Clara's hand beneath the wool blankets. They speak not of sex, but of devotion. In the quiet corners of her home, she keeps pressed flowers, bundles of dried herbs, and one small carved tokena simple piece of wood, shaped like a flame, of bodies curled close for comfort, of hands washing each other's feet, of sighs in the dark, of laughter under woolen blankets. But even then, love persisted. People made time for affection, for secret joy, for stolen kisses behind barns, for passions scribbled in the margins of prayer books. Sex was not a sin. It was simply life. It was birth and risk and release and intimacy. It was a gift from Thomas long ago. One line only, asterisk. The candle does not choose the flame, but it still burns. That night, Andre wept not from sorrow, but for the simple, impossible beauty of being seen. She has not touched another in many years, but she has never been alone. Because, you see, intimacy lingers. For medieval people, like Eleanor, love could outlast touch. It could bloom even after the fire cooled. That love was always arranged, that desire was always punished. It wasn't so. Let's wander now to a scribe's workshop in Prague. They met 2 winters ago in the church archive, hands reaching for the same scroll. Their eyes met a brief second, nothing more. But in that second, Andre felt his breath shift, as though the world had changed shape around him. They spoke only a few times, carefully, quietly, always aware of listening ears. But in that brief season, Luca gave Andre a poem. Luca moved away to another city, another post, but Andre still writes. Love specially queer, love had no place in the open daylight. Let your heart settle now, as if you were holding that scroll in your lap. Now walk with me to a monastery garden. The earth is soft, the summer blossoms heavy. Their names are Clara and Sabine. And in the still of the night, when the others sleep, they whisper verses to one another. And perhaps that is what intimacy truly is, the willingness to be with someone, fully, gently, again and again. Clara will die first. The medieval world was not cold, as we sometimes think. It was not only stained glass and stone. It was full of warmth. Yes, there was hardship. Yes, there was fear. Now let go of all the myths that medieval people were prudish, that they didn't feel what we feel. The truth is much softer, more human, more familiar than you might think. So, as your eyes flutter gently and the weight of your limbs carries you to sleep, history is not behind us. It sleeps beside us. Tonight, may it cradle you like a lover's arm steady, safe, silent, warm. Feel your body melting now, as if you were being wrapped in wool, tucked beneath the softness of time. You are not just a listener anymore. You are a traveler, moving gently through the folds of centuries, breathing with those who came before you. Their hearts beat through the silence. Their sighs are part of the air. And as we move into the final chapters of this journey, know that what you've seen, what you've felt, will stay with you like the scent of firewood in your hair after a night by the hearth. Let's return just once more to the village where Eleanor lives. It is winter now. Snow muffles the world like a blanket. Footprints fade quickly in the drifts, but Eleanor's steps are firm, not as a ghost, but as a warmth behind her eyes. Because touch can be remembrance. Because even when the body is alone, the soul can conjure what it misses. Astrid is not ashamed. She is alive, and in the old god's eyes, that is enough. For the Norse, sex was neither taboo nor holy. It simply was. A force like the wind, powerful, mysterious, natural. And when their eyes meet, she knows. That night they do not speak. They simply breathe together. Hands, lips, hearts. One night only. No promises, just presence. Her name is Astrid. Her husband, Bjorn, is at Sigon for months. To all the unnamed, unsung lovers who dared to share their warmth, let their whispers rock you to sleep. Let their candles glow quietly in your chest, like embers you'll never lose. She has no idea if he lives or if the ocean has swallowed him. But she waits not with helplessness, but with ritual. Here, a healer named Miriam works beneath the stone archway. People whisper about her, say she knows too much, say she is touched by something otherworldly. They're not wrong. Miriam carries desire like fire beneath water controlled, but burning. She is Jewish. She is alone. Her husband died years ago, a soldier, taken in a skirmish. She never understood. She mourned. She wept. She wailed into her shawl for months, and then she healed. For medieval people, memory was sacred. To remember was to keep alive, to honor, to hold. And in that moment, Eleanor holds all the women who came before her, those who whispered in darkness, who walked the forest paths, who dared to say yes, even when the world said no. She walks to the chapel. She lights a candle and kneels not to confess, but to remember, because she has known him in a way that transcends names. The act itself, gentle, slow, was more than pleasure. It was proof that she still lived, still desired, still asterisk was. Intimacy, for her, was not about possession. It was about recognition. And perhaps that is what it has always been, the quiet, aching miracle of being seen. To honor what was, love, desire, the right to feel, to want, to touch. You are not alone in your longing. You are not strange in your hunger. You are part of a great, beautiful chain of humans, century upon century, touching each other in love, in fear, in grief, in joy. She doesn't look up, doesn't ask for permission, because now she understands. The divine does not fear the body. The soul is not shamed by softness. In her stillness, she feels Thomas. We step now into another story, a little different. Far north, in a wind-swept land of fjords and long nights, a Viking woman waits beside a fire. Each night, she sings their song, the one he hummed as he carved wood at the door, the one she sang to him under bearskin sex. To her, was not only physical, it was memory, it was magic. Before he left, they had lain together, rough hands, strong breath, soft laughter under their furs. They didn't speak about love, but they showed it in the food she prepared for him, in the amulet he wore hers, braided with her own hair. Now, months later, she touches herself quietly, not out of lust, but grief and hope. Let that wind pass over you now. Feel it on your skin, wild, free, alive. Let it carry you to another story, to the warm sands of Jerusalem. Now she tends to others, wraps wounds, delivers babies, mixes oils of saffron and myrrh. One evening, a stranger comes, a merchant, dark eyes, dusty clothes, quiet voice. He has a cut on his arm. She cleans it, binds it, and in the morning he is gone. But Miriam is not sad. Now, wherever you are, however your life has unfolded, let this story wrap around your own. You are connected to them, to Eleanor, to Astrid, to Miriam. And now, as your breath deepens, as your body relaxes even further, let go of everything else. Let their stories hold you. You are safe, you are sacred, and you are like them beautifully, unapologetically human. Certainly, here's your beautifully poetic script rewritten into paragraph form, while preserving its hypnotic, lyrical quality. Asterisk, asterisk, whispers of intimacy. What was sex really like for medieval people? Asterisk, asterisk, a hypnotic, sleep-inducing story, soft, now, softer than ever. The story is nearly done, but your rest is just beginning. You've walked through winding paths of the past, touched the forgotten corners of longing, heard the whispers hidden between ancient stone and flickering firelight. And now we come to rest. As the night settles deeper around you, so too does the truth we've slowly, lovingly uncovered. Sex in the medieval world was never just about rules, because sometimes intimacy wasn't romantic, sometimes it was transactional, sometimes it was confusing, sometimes it was nothing more than need meeting need. But even then, knit was real. It mattered. It was sailors like Bjorn who carried tokens of home beneath their armor. What they shared was enough. She once feared what people would think, feared her desires, feared her own body. Now she fears nothing, because she has lived in truth, loved in truth. You who has felt the warmth of skin beside yours. You who has feared being too much or not enough. You who has whispered into the dark, do I deserve this? With every forgotten lover, every brave heart, every quiet soul who dared to want more than survival. Feel their warmth in your bones, their courage in your chest, their tenderness in your fingertips. Will I be loved for who I am, even in silence, even in shadows? And that, in the end, is the most honest life anyone can live. The widows who remembered the warmth of breath on their collarbones. It was the bruised, the bold, the tender, and so does our story. It was nuns like Sabine who held each other in the hush of vows and veils. It was healers like Miriam who let themselves be seen, if only for a night. She lies in bed, older now, wrapped in a thick linen blanket, knowing that intimacy, in all its forms, messy, sacred, simple, wild, has always been with us, across brothels and ballrooms, across oceans and parchment, across centuries. And tonight, as your body sinks deeper into stillness, you are part of that unbroken chain. A single candle flickers near the foot of her bed. Its light dances on the walls like the memories she carries. She closes her eyes. She remembers the forest, the green chapel, Thomas's hands, her own breath rising like mist. Never just about sin or purity or shame. It was life. It was language. It was survival. It was rebellion. And may love, in all its quiet power, stay with you until the morning comes. It was the quietest act of defiance in a world that tried to dictate every heartbeat. It was women like Eleanor who dared to love without permission. It was monks like Andre who wrote their desires in margins no one ever read. It was the lovers who met in secret chapels, the peasants who clung to each other in winter. And yes, it was the awkward, the silent, the unsure. And now, in the stillness of this final hour, it becomes part of you. Let's return once more to Eleanor. She does not regret, she does not wish for different endings, because what she had, as she sleeps, the candle burns low. But before we part, one final truth for you to carry into your dreams. You are not so different from them. You who sometimes longs without reason. Yes, yes, you do. Yes, you are. Because real love doesn't belong to a time or a place. It belongs to the soul. It stretches across fields of wheat and candlelit chapels. Breathe with them now, with Eleanor, with Thomas, with Astrid and Miriam and Sabine. And now, let go. Let the fire fade. Let the wind hush. Let the world fall silent. You are held. You are safe. You are enough. And as your dreams begin to bloom, may they carry with them a deeper peace, and always will be. Sleep now, dear dreamer. You've journeyed far. Let history rest its head beside yours. Good night, dear.